Okay, let us continue with our second reading. Our second reading is from the Bible, from John, the book of John, 1 John 5 through 7. God is light. Within him there is no darkness at all. If we claim to have fellowship in him and yet walk in the darkness, we lie and do not live out the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. If we claim to be without sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. And then from 2 John 8 through 11, I am writing you a new command. Its truth is seen in him and in you, because the darkness is passing and the true light is already shining. Anyone who claims to be in the light but hates a brother or sister is still in the darkness. Anyone who loves their brother or sister lives in the light, and there is nothing in them to make them stumble. But anyone who hates his brother or sister is in the darkness and walks around in darkness. They do not know where they are going because the darkness has blinded them. You can see there's a similar message between that and the Ernest Holmes reading, where the woman who was having trouble with her office manager chose to see the light in her brother, because we are all from God, and we are all, God is light, God is love, we are all of that divinity. And even if we can just see one little speck of light, we've seen God in that person. And I know it's challenging sometimes, but we'll get to that. The next hymn is "The Lord is My Light." You might know this one. This is from the Catholic hymnal. The Lord is my light, my help, my salvation. Why should I fear? With God I fear no one. God protects me all my life. With the Lord, what should I dread? The Lord is my light, the Lord is my help, the Lord is my salvation. There is one thing I ask of the Lord that I long for, all of my days with God, to be dwelling, gazing with awe at the beauty of God, and in wonder look on God's house. The Lord is my light, the Lord is my help, the Lord is my salvation. I know I will live to see the Lord's goodness. Now in this life, I'm sure I will see it. Trust in the Lord, be strong and be brave. Wait in hope for God, our salvation. The Lord is my light, the Lord is my help, the Lord is You know, the Lord is my light. I had another hymn. I put a different hymn on the program. And then I had to charge my phone in between segments, and because the microphone and the phone are the same jack. So I was like, I think I'll pick a different song, so I picked this one. It's good to have hymnals lying around, you know. I have a resume of having played for churches for 15 years of my life. Catholic Church and the Methodist Church. And now I have my own church. So let's go to the sermon. And I must go back to the program and see what the title was again. The exact title, The Triumph of God's Light. Now, I chose this for a couple of reasons. Rather than choosing gratitude as a main theme for November, but we will do a Thanksgiving service, and we'll do that then. I know that we are in very challenging times, and you know, that's what brought to mind the Chinese proverb, it is better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. When we are challenged in our lives, when we experience that which we do not want, when we are submerged in the darkness, that is not the end of the story. The redemption, the end of the story, the saving grace is to continue the journey until we reach the light. You notice behind me there's a photograph of two lighthouses, which just reminds us that God is our guiding light. You know, there's that, if you can see it, I'm sure you can see it. There's a smaller light, which is a red light, and then there's a brighter light, almost representative of, and that's actually two lighthouses that are here where I live on Cape Ann, Massachusetts. And you can look at that as the bright light, God's light, guiding the, you know, the different colored light that's a smaller light, kind of a lower light. It's not the end of your story if you're submerged in the darkness. If you're submerged in the darkness, you are in a process. Do not ever lose hope, because there's always light. And even, you know, it reminds me of Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl's famous work, who suffered the horrifying experience of being at Auschwitz, the concentration camps, where the horror is unimaginable, right? And he actually had to come to a place where when the Nazis served up some semblance of something to eat, what he got was a bowl of water with a fish head in it. And he marveled at the fish head. He's very famous for having survived the concentration camps. And Man's Search for Meaning is such a hard read. I have the book, but I have not been able to get very far in the book. That's darkness. That is being submerged in the darkness and needing to find one speck of light. And in our story from Ernest Holmes, Science of Mind, the study book, at-home study book, when he tells the story of the woman in the office who just cannot find it within herself to find something good about this man who she happens to have in her office as the office manager. And he's, you know, this was written during times when men were walking around with cigars being big shots, right? It's not so much that way anymore. But she was challenged when she went to, I think she actually went to Ernest Holmes for counsel about this issue she was going through. Because when we're going through that and we're not feeling uplifted, and we're not feeling like we can feel the love, and we're not feeling like we can see the light, we need help with that. We definitely need help with that. We're only human. We have human emotions that feel dark, like hatred and wanting revenge and wanting to get them back for the the atrocities, right? But Ernest Holmes challenged her to find the goodness. And I have talked to clients about this because I know that it's true, spiritual counseling clients. I encourage everybody to do what they must do to come to a place of peace and a place of acceptance and a place of love and a place of light, because it's always there. And sometimes, the harder it is to find it, the greater the reward of being submerged in light is. I've mentioned it before and I'll mention it again. When I read that the Dalai Lama meditates and prays every day on compassion for the Chinese, it really stuck with me. Because none of us can really imagine, probably, being at certain levels of consciousness, right? None of us can probably imagine having our entire home, having to flee our home, and he had to flee Tibet so he wouldn't be executed as he watched his people being slaughtered. And, I hate to be, waxing so dark right now, but I just want to give perspective. He meditates every day on compassion for the Chinese, and to meditate on it and to pray on it is what we need, particularly when it's so dark that we can't remove ourselves from the need for revenge and the need to go down to that lower level of darkness. And that's when the demonic forces can really have us where they want us, which is in despair and anger and frustration and intolerance. The darkness wants us there. The darkness wants us to not be at peace, and it is work. It's not, he abused me and I'm okay with it. It's not that, and that's where we get all mixed up. That's where we get all mixed up. Because forgiveness and meditating on compassion and meditating on kindness and meditating on being that love is the only way that we can really get to the light. And when we free ourselves, others free. So in my counseling practice, I often have to tell people, and you probably can understand this, when one person in the tribe, that might be a family, that might be a workplace, when one person in that tribe, whatever it might be, decides to commence the healing process for themselves, I've seen it time and time again, and perhaps you have too, the rest of the tribe raises up too. The way it was shown to me by my spiritual guides one day was, it's as if when you were a kid and you played under a blanket, like maybe you made a tent with your friends with a blanket or your siblings, and maybe everybody was crouched down, and then you pushed up the blanket, and then it got pushed up for everybody. That's kind of how it works. So we don't forgive and we don't release the darkness in order to say, it's okay, I condone that behavior, I condone that sexual abuse, I condone that verbal abuse, I condone that. That is not what we're doing. We're saying, I refuse to spend the precious moments of this gift called life submerged for one more second in these dark emotions. I choose to free you because I choose to be free. I choose to be free to lighten my load. You may have heard the story about two Buddhist monks. This is kind of a popular story that I heard many years ago from my religious science minister in Nashville. That two monks were hiking, and as they were hiking, they were monks. They were solitary, celibate monks, and they were walking, and they came across a woman who needed to cross the river that they were crossing also. and she begged them to help her to get across the river because she needed to get across. So one of the monks was kind enough to say, okay, I'll carry you across the river. So he did. And then he set her down and off she went on her way. Thank you so much. You really helped me so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And off they went on their way. And the two monks who had been chatting along the way on their walk prior to seeing the woman, the one who carried the woman noticed that the other was being strangely quiet. And this went on for a few miles until finally he said, "What is up?" This is my modern day version of the story. "What's up? What's wrong with you?" And finally the other monk let him have it and said, "I cannot believe that you carried that woman across the river. That's against the rules. We were not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to touch of the female." And the other one was flabbergasted and went, "I dropped her off miles ago. Why are you still holding her?" So the one who was so upset that his friend monk helped the woman was the one that was truly suffering, because he hung on to it. He was hanging on to something that he could have just let go. How often do we do that? How often do we have a problem and it would take one, well, I'm sorry. There are people that hold on to grudges till the day they leave this earth, or the person they're holding a grudge with leaves this earth. And by then, it's too late. And by then, all those precious moments have been lost. And we cannot restore the years the locusts have eaten, because we're at the end, or they're at the end. We must find the light, even if it's just a little speck. And that is the challenge. And what we do with that little speck of light matters. When we grow that light and we grow our perception, we see a wider view. It's always good to see the blessing in disguise. And the blessing in disguise of being in the darkness is when we are in darkness, we crave the light. Not one of us wants to stay there. That's not what we want. We crave the light. And we can pray and we can meditate and we can do whatever we can do to ask God for help. Please soften my heart. Please show me their innocence, as it says in the Course in Miracles. I've been recently going back and reading a lot of John Bradshaw's work, which John Bradshaw wrote some of the first books, that are like the psychology of the inner child and what happens to us psychologically when we're really young. These negative programs, along with the positives, the negative ones were planted at a very young age. And we have to take into consideration that we are all born innocent. And it is through the sins or the mishandling or, being raised by wounded people or, whatever it may be, that is the root of the cause of why somebody might be exhibiting horrifying behavior. But they came in innocent and something happened. And sometimes if we can see that, I work a lot with people that, and you probably can understand this, with people that, have and justifiably, rightfully and understandably so, a lot of rage against, people that they were around them or raised them, a lot of rage. And it's like Louise Hay says when she talks about when we have problems with maybe our parents, people that raised us and were around us, it's really helpful to look at what happened to them. How were they raised? Were they raised in fear? Were they raised in rage? Were they raised with, alcoholism or addiction in the family? Were they raised just in an unpredictable situation? Were they, which is, an alcoholic kind of household, is very unpredictable for a child, doesn't know what to expect when the parent comes home. What was going on with them when they were growing up? Were they, needing to be perfect? Were they raised by narcissistic parents? Consider the source. Consider where that person came from to assist you in your forgiveness work. Stop taking it personally. Like I often say here, hurt people hurt people. If we see their innocence and we see that they, like us, are sparks of the divine, it makes it easier. And when we free ourselves and we open to the light, like last week I said that Jesus in Aramaic spoke about making ourselves an empty vessel, a holy vessel for the divine to shine through. And unforgiveness is like, I misspoke when I talked about it last week. Unforgiveness is like cement that's clogging up the vessel. And we want to do all that we can to bring the light clear. More and more light can come into the vessel when the vessel is clean and clear. And unforgiveness and grudges are like, they're hardened substances that we've got to break up. We got to take a sledgehammer to that cement and just not break the vessel, but just let it go. The Lord is my light, my hope and my salvation. Thank you for listening to my message. Let us reflect on that. I mean, we can really come into gratitude when we clear the vessel and know that you're doing it not just for you, but for the collective and for the tribe. And you will see results, just like the lady in the office with the nasty office manager. Let's go to the giving segment of our program. I just want to say, if you have any questions or comments or feedback about this message, if you need assistance in any way, if you want to talk about it, AnnetteDion7@gmail.com. And I also invite you to our prayer meeting that is actually in a Facebook Live private chat room on Mondays, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We pray, we talk about the readings from today, and we solve some things. All free. The charity that I've chosen for the month of November is one that we have given to before. We're going back to giving to the Second Harvest Food Bank of South Louisiana to support the hungry and the homeless who have suffered the destruction and ravages of the coastal hurricanes. Let us not forget, those people are still struggling. 100% of your donation that you can send me through Venmo goes to the Second Harvest Food Bank of South Louisiana. My Venmo is at AnnetteDion123. Venmo at AnnetteDion123. For PayPal, you just use my email address, AnnetteDion7@gmail.com. If you don't trust me and you need proof that the money went there, I would never keep it, but just let me know. Thank you for caring for others and for your generosity, and especially for your presence here, even though it's a video that's pre-recorded. The prayer of thanksgiving. Dear Father, Mother, God, we give thanks this day for all of the blessings you have bestowed upon us. We thank you for guiding us through the storms and bringing us safely to the other side where your unfailing love resides. Forgive us for those times we looked only to the darkness and despair and temporarily forgot to look to you and acknowledge that you alone are the power and the truth and the light that is guiding and giving to us at all times. Open our eyes, dear Lord, to see the good that we may have been missing. Awaken us to what we have that we can give to others to make a difference in this troubled world. Thank you for this bounty which we always receive. Amen. I'm going to do our closing hymn. if I can find it. And it's called Pass It On. Whoops. All right. And then we'll read from Ernest Holmes. I know, I should mark these pages ahead of time. So Pass It On is a hymn that's about spreading the light. And I need to get it out of this book because I transposed it like I have to do, or I'm singing too high. And if you are feeling so inclined, please share this video and please subscribe. I want more people to be uplifted. And I know you do too. It only takes a spark to get a fire going, and soon all those around can warm up in its glowing. That's how it is with God's love. Once you've experienced it, you spread His love to everyone. You want to pass it on. I wish for you, my friend, this happiness that I have found. You can depend on Him. It matters not where you're bound. I'll shout it from the mountaintop. I want my world to know the Lord of love has come to me. I want to pass it on. The Lord of love has come to me. I want to pass it on. The Lord of love has come to me and come to you, and we want to pass it on. We will close with a reading from the Science of Mind, which I read every week. Take a deep breath and take it in. And give yourself love and appreciation for having made this time, whenever you're watching. Just notice that it's getting dark out. It's our twilight service. Through the long night watches, God's hand clasps ours. At the break of dawn, God's hand clasps ours. In the daytime of work and endeavor, from eternity to eternity, God's hand clasps ours. When time shall have passed, when eternity shall be strewn about like falling petals, and space and worlds shall be swallowed up in everlasting blessedness, God's hand shall clasp ours, and so it is. Go in peace, be peace. Please pray for peace. Pray for light, more light to shine on this troubled world. And please consider joining us for our prayer meeting on Monday, 7 Eastern Standard Time. Send me an email, AnnetteDion7@gmail.com, and I will tell you how to do that. All right. Namaste. Thank you. Bright blessings. Good night.